Hey everyone, Emmanuel here. In this video, I'm going to cover off dynamic stretching. So, dynamic stretching can best be understood as much more complicated than the static stretching, okay? So, it is not just doing one set, but it's more dynamic, I guess. So, I'll give you a kind of a small example. So, let's say, you stretch out your shoulders, like, let's say like this, right? So, at a static position, I'm holding it here. If I wanted to stretch out the shoulders in a more dynamic way, I would start to do like a rotation. So I would, let's say, I'm stretching and then I'm adding rotations, right? So that would be one way of understanding, rather than just a static stretch like this, I'm adding movement to the stretch, right? I'm adding much more range of motion. So this is a good one to start with, right? So warming up the arms and the shoulders, you put them out, and then just slowly start to kind of twist. So I'm rotating from the hand, and then it's sending it all the way over to here. So you can think of a towel wringing itself out, right? And what I'm doing in my mind is I'm reaching. So this hand here is reaching towards, not just twisting, but I'm reaching and twisting. So I'm reaching and I'm twisting. And if you think of a towel being wrung out, that's the good way of doing it. So it's not just turning, but it's turning and reaching. So I'm really starting to stretch from either end, right? And you could easily do it that way as well, like up top. So you can see every time I turn my hand, it starts to stretch muscles all along my arm, but it also gets up into my ribs and towards the low back as well. So I'm just gonna start from the ground now, like seated position, and I'm just slowly reaching, and I'm reaching here, but I'm also reaching back. So it's like I'm being pulled in two, or being stretched at opposite ends, and I'm adding the movement of the hand, which is a good analogy. Think of a doorknob. But you start to slowly see how this way stretches out certain things, that way stretches out different things. So it's exploring reaching and twisting. Okay, that's really what this is. Reaching and twisting, okay? So after I'm done with the arms a little bit, I try it with my legs. So it's the exact same thing. I think about rotating my ankles, right? And watching how the legs respond, and then also reaching. So again, I'm reaching with this foot over here and twisting my ankle or rotating my ankle. The same with this one. And you can do it like in so many different ways, right? So I'm creating a movement. I'm really stretching. In this case, I got to stretch here, and then I'm adding a twist to the foot over on this side. So I got dynamic. I'm not, holding one position and stretching, but I'm stretching through a range of motion, and I'm adding a twist, and I'm reaching, okay? So that's a good way to look at it, okay? That's kind of a really basic way of looking at it. And then it can get much more complex. I can start to kind of reach with my left hand and reach down with my right foot. So I start to kind of reach in the opposite directions, right? And if you watch me, I'm kind of also moving on the ground. So it's like I'm reaching for this, or I'm reaching with my foot, and I'm reaching with my hand, and I'm reaching. So all this stuff is moving me, right? So every time I reach, I get to the end, and then just before it's about to end, like just before it's about to touch the ground, I change my hand position, and it sets my body in a different motion, and I'm reaching with my backhand. And before I end, I start to reach with my foot, reach with my hand, reach with my other hand, reach back with my foot. And what I've done is I've basically become a massive starfish on the ground, right? And you can coin the term starfish stretching. But try to think of it like, something, for kids or for adults. Just say, the converter is just out of your reach, or it's just, and you've got to really, stretch for it, right? This type of stretching dynamic mimics a lot more of the real life
things that we need. The reason you would stretch is to catch a ball or to, get something that you're after. Think of it like that. You would want to mimic those features. Like, so right now I'm moving on the ground. It could be very much like wrestling, right? There's elements that I can think of. But you take any sport that you do, you look at the movement patterns and you open them up, you stretch through them, right? So a basketball player, the way they jump and they have to reach up, so their flexibility through a range of motion, right? So you just need to look at the patterns that you're doing and stretch further from them, right? And stretch by reaching and then adding a little bit of a twist and then letting the body kind of take its behaviors, right? So that's the way I like to look at it. So I'm stretching with my foot, I'm adding a twist. I'm stretching with my hand, I'm adding a twist. I'm stretching with my arm, I'm adding a twist. I love starting from the ground because it really starts, for me, to the ground acts as kind of like a self-massage. The weight of my body on the ground starts to give me some sort of good sensation so that I understand where tensions are in my body. Because remember, when you stretch, it definitely is going to cause the body a little bit of tension, and you need to learn how to relax through that, right? So the dynamic stretching is a much more complex version of static stretching, and I find has great benefits to stretch you, warm you up in a great way. So that would be the first place you would start. I would start just seated with my arms, lying down with my legs, and then combining the arms and legs. And you just have to keep this process in your head. It's all about processes, guys. Like, understand and remembering why you're doing something, right? It's easy just to do this and not stretch, just twist, and it becomes quite easy. But when you start to add that reaching element to it, it starts to stretch, and that's where the benefits are, right? Because by doing these kind of movements, you're really stretching those small little muscles in the shoulders and the hips and in the back that near impossible for a static stretch to get, right? Because think of what's so amazing, especially about our arms and our legs, is the amount of positions that they can take, the amount of dexterity and flexibility and range of motion that we have. And we go back here, we go up. Like, look at the range. It's remarkable, right? And there's a gajillion muscles and ligaments and tendons that are working here. So dynamic stretching tends to touch much more than the static stretching. It also has a lot more freedom of expression. You see a lot more individual expression. Now the same thing exists standing up. So I can do the same thing standing up. I'll show you kind of a good way to look at it. I'm just gonna turn the camera here up towards a wall. You can kind of see me. So what I would do first is, again, just with my upper body, start to reach. So I'm reaching up, I'm reaching out, I'm reaching across, I'm reaching down. And it's, again, very dynamic. There's like a movement. So it's like, if you think of the wall, if you think of the floor like this, well, the wall is just like a stand-up floor. So everything I just did on the ground, now I'm here, but I'm really just working with my upper body right now, right? So I'm moving, but I'm also stretching on both ends. So this up and this down, or this out, and then adding rotations, right? So then I start to do the same thing with my legs. So I start to kind of move or stretch. So my legs are working with the floor now, right? So I'm stretching my legs in opposite directions. So I'm getting my legs involved and my arms involved on the floor. So with my right hand, then I'm reaching this way, and with my left leg, I'm reaching that way. So, and again, I'm being light. I'm not being heavy on my feet or my arms. I'm reaching with my right hand, my left hand back, my right foot forward, my left foot back. So I'm really getting stretched from 4 different points. So not 1 or 2, but actually the real good thing is that you feel like you're being pulled apart in 4 directions. And the main goal would be to relax. That's the main goal as I'm reaching and relaxing. Because remember, like I said in the static stretches, it's not a stretch until you relax. Otherwise it becomes just a tense, okay? So you would migrate from the floor to the wall
Start just with the arms first and then integrate the legs. And you realize that you can't think about this. The only way to properly do it is a feel thing. You have to feel like as I'm reaching here with my left hand and my right foot is sliding out. Then all of a sudden I add a twist, and now all of a sudden my left foot starts to, and then so you're feeling, because all these muscles are pulling. They're pulling and they're giving you information. So maybe in one position the leg's tight, the arms are not, and then you stretch a little bit more with the arm, and now you forgot about the leg. So you're actually really teaching yourself how to feel your body is reaching. And this is very important for martial arts, because a lot of martial arts, they try to make you reach, or to make you go outside your comfort zone or outside your own, to make you vulnerable, because you feel, especially as I'm reaching, you can feel how vulnerable you are. You're not as stable, the body's not as much structure. So another thing you always hear in Systema is, keep your posture, reaching is a dangerous thing. That's where a lot of injuries happen. And in martial arts, that's where a lot of the takedowns happen, by starting to get you off balance and get you reaching and make you unstable. So by feeling this instability, you're much more apt to not let yourself get there. You start to see for a fact how vulnerable you are, right? And then you can come off the wall and onto an open space, right? So let me just go back here. So now in the open space, again, I start to kind of reach, and the floor, obviously my foot, I can lift it up. I'm stretching forward with my foot, I'm reaching with my hands. Of course, there's some elements of balance here, of course, as well, but nonetheless, I am focusing on reaching or stretching, right? You can stand really, really close to the wall and do something very similar. So, again, you're coming off, you're trying to make this as dynamic, hence the word. Like I'm close to the wall and I'm trying to touch it, I'm trying to touch it, I'm just outside my reach, and it's forcing me to relax and find different ways of getting to that wall. Because the more I relax, you start to realize you can make up sometimes 4-5 inches just by relaxing. This is again not my opinion, this is the truth, guys. If you stick your hand out to shake somebody's hand, you realize if you relax your shoulder, if you relax your spine, if you relax your hips, you've easily made up 5, 6, 7, 8 inches, who knows, right? I remember a long time ago doing this yoga class. It was great, the instructor was wonderful. It was a yin yoga, I believe it was called. So it's a more of a restorative yoga. It was wonderful. We held poses and positions for many minutes, right? So 3 to 5 minutes, and the instructor just slowly walked us through shutting off different muscles. Now relax your shoulders, relax your upper back, and you realize in a matter of 2 minutes your head was a foot off the ground. Now it's comfortably touching the ground. I was amazed. I knew that I had that kind of control, but I had never seen it quite so clearly before. So never underestimate, by relaxing, how much more flexibility you'll have, especially on the dynamic side. So of course on the static, but you'll also find that as well with dynamic stretching. So I hope these few ways start on the ground, then progress to the wall, then progress to an open space. And the idea is that you're moving. It almost feels like swimming, maybe a little bit slower, but you're also reaching. And the reaching is going to be the most important aspect of it. The reaching is what will start to open up your flexibility in a dynamic way. And it will also show you a clear difference from the static stretching. You'll see how they're both good, but the dynamic, I find, will probably get you better results over the long run. And I use static stretches to maybe fix problem areas that I have. Like certain areas are going to be problematic for all of us, and we might want to incorporate some static stretches in there before or after. But I find dynamic will accomplish much more for me as it relates to my body as one organism, right? That's the dynamic stretches as well help with those things, okay? Hope this helps. And I'm gonna give you a lot of videos on different topics as it relates to stretching. There's so many good opinions and good perspectives, hard to cover in just one shot. But I hope you practice some dynamic stretches and let me know how it goes. And I got some more videos coming up. Take care.